Thank you, Christian, and thanks for inviting us along to talk. My name's Dan Wrench. I'm the Climate and Carbon Project Officer at Shropshire Council, but I'm also a director of Biodynamic Carbon Limited, which is a joint venture between Shropshire Council and Woodtech Engineering. And my co-presenter is going to be Darren. So, Darren, do you want to do a quick introduction to yourself as well?
Hi, so I'm one of the directors of Wood Tech Engineering. I work mainly on the technical development, project delivery, and commercial strategy here at Wood Tech. I also have a deep experience with running highly efficient waste wood combined heat and power biomass systems. Through my role at Krieger Boilers UK, I'll be going through the more technical side of the machinery and providing an insight of how the joint venture has helped the private sector, ourselves, in this working together. But I'll hand you back onto Dan and chip you after.
Thank you. Yeah, Darren is definitely the expert in terms of biochar and pyrolysis. I come from a background in ecology, so I was a county ecologist for quite a while. I joined the climate change team in 2019. We started a climate change strategy, and my focus was on carbon sequestration. So I looked at tree planting schemes, got several of those going, but soon found pyrolysis and was very interested in the prospects there. Started looking at various different options and different technologies for pyrolysis and how it might apply to Shropshire Council. Um, and it took quite a while. I mean, we did have some useful contacts with the Energy and Bioproducts Research Institute at Aston University, but we were considering a wide range of technologies. But in about 2021, maybe 22, we found a neighbour, really, Woodtech, who are about 45 minutes away from Shropshire, from where we are based at Shropshire Council. And we started discussions with them on how we might work with them. In We were still interested in looking at a wide range of technologies, and in 2023 we submitted a council paper for approval, and we were approved £2 million worth of funding to buy our own pyrolysis unit. And we continued conversations with Woodtech, and we they were looking for capital funding to purchase their first, their own commercial model. They've been using a pilot model up until that point, and we found that we set up this joint venture, which I'll go into a little bit more detail later, following another paper in April 2024. That was commissioned in 2025 and is operational from December 2024, sorry, and has been operational ever since that time. And we've now been awarded planning approval for our second unit, which is the first one we applied for, and we are hoping that one is going to be operational from March 2026. So back to my sort of ecological roots, a lot of the issues I've had with a lot of the habitat management and loss of biodiversity in our county is through under-management, really. So, woodlands not being managed effectively, and the cost associated with management of our highways and taking out diseased trees. We've got a lot of ash dieback, which is leading to lots of trees dying back. We've got a wide range of country parks and reserves. A lot of that management is a cost to us as a local authority. And there are some invasive species and species that just need constant removal, like gorse and heather and bracken and so forth. So there's a huge amount of biomass available, and I've often thought, wouldn't it be better to do something with that? When we were looking at technologies, one of the sort of barriers that I kept on coming up with is that actually, we can't really process that biomass very well because most of the units needed very clean feedstocks. So this image here, we've got sort of whole tree biomass on the left hand side of that, or on the bottom right hand picture, and then we've got the sort of virgin biomass. And so that's not really what I was looking at doing. I was more interested in the green wastes or the low grade biomass. And as this slide points out, that for every ton of virgin biomass going through a standard pyrolysis unit, there's about 1 ton of brash and residues that doesn't tend to be used. And actually, that's a huge missing sort of resource there, and that can just that usually just either gets burnt or decays and rots away after being removed from the virgin virgin wood. So we were really keen on the wood tech machine because that was designed really to accept a wide range of different feedstocks, and this is where the technical side of things Darren can explain in a bit more detail.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to waste my time with this audience and tell you what biochar is because most of you guys can probably tell me more than I know about biochar. What I will say from our experience of predominantly dealing with waste and lower grade feedstocks is when you're dealing with these feedstocks, the ones that we believe should be used for biochar, the pyrolysis process is actually the easy part. The challenge of the feedstock preparation, ensuring consistent quality into the machine. This is what ensures the biochar coming out of the machine is a consistent quality and the emissions are correctly controlled and filtered where needed. So our journey actually started back in March 2018, where we were developing biomass systems that did not have the common problems that the market technology had at the time. So eliminating furnace hotspots, that stops going over temperature, having emission issues, causing premature servicing shutdown, refractory failure, which becomes a lot of replacement parts and a lot of downtime and just poor lifespan of the biomass systems. We were also looking at trying to reduce the excessive downtime, any fouling, and being able to cope with change of feedstocks, and more importantly, having the machine look after itself where possible and built around planned preventive maintenance. 2019, after a successful test, we pivoted our focus towards biochar and developing pyrolysis. I think June 2021, our original prototype machine was consistently producing EBC grade biochar. Unfortunately, the market for raw biochar at the time in the UK was just non-existent. We worked on many biochar markets. However, as our manufacturing plant and our prototype plant site are at the same site where a family-owned farm is, our primary focus was for animal bedding, which is where we would then, after the bedding, it would go to land as biochar and rich farmyard manure. As many as you know, research and development is very expensive. So in between EBC agri-grade production, we would tend to use composted green waste oversize. So this is when you're producing compost, taking the green waste and you screen out the fines, take out more compost, smaller fractions, you're left with the big, scraggly, horrible parts. It's probably one of the most difficult feedstocks to process, to be honest, but there is millions of tons of it available. So taking this feedstock in on a gate fee helped us actually finance the growth. This actually rapidly developed our feedstock preparation and handling side, and it allowed us to then focus on harnessing the high amount of thermal energy the C1000 technology gives you. We started to generate electricity in 2023, as well as supplying all the heat use for our site. When we first spoke to Shropshire over 3 years ago now, we had already developed a full turnkey solution for oversized composted green waste, which, as I said before, is one of the most challenging types of biomass available. Our prototype machine racked up over 50,000 hours between 2016 and 2024, proving its durability for lower grade biomass feedstocks. This, along with continuous emissions monitoring, was essential for the proof of concept on local authority green waste. This proving operation time with ultra low emissions, combined with our hands-on experience in biomass handling system, gave Shropshire Council the confidence to partner with us and move forward with the biodynamic carbon joint venture. We have over 150 biomass drying systems installed worldwide. They all have different feedstock handling systems, screening systems, feedstock storage, feedstock disposal. That's allowed Woodtech to quickly become one of the market-leading turnkey solutions in the biochar industry. As I said earlier, the biochar, the pyrolysis is the easy part. Feedstock preparation, emissions control, that requires the most input of any early feasibility of a project. So leaving the past behind, our old prototype machine, Betty, which I think some of you have met in person. Betty has been decommissioned and now replaced with a full spec customer model. This is a C1000 unit where all of the thermal energy is used to dry feedstock, produce electricity, and produce heat for the industrial and domestic buildings on site. When we're not carrying out feedstock trials, which we have done a lot of since the early stage of commissioning, We're producing up to 1,000 tons per year of EBC agro-grade biochar from whole tree biomass, or even EBC feed grade, feedstock dependent. The BDC joint venture aims to display best available technology in continuous pyrolysis. So thermal energy available and combined heat and power. As I speak, today the plant is generating 62 kilowatt net of electricity, which is almost all of the requirement of our site here. This is including our factory, which is currently manufacturing C1000 machines, while supplying thermal energy to supply to dry the feedstock. And I think the waste heat out of the ORC is going into timber kiln drying. Minimal operator input. So we trade on the Puro platform and EBC biochar. The auditing and paperwork side of that grows every year. So we've tried to put as much of that into the control system as possible, so the operator does not have to have so much input. Low service and maintenance costs. The original concept of a secondary furnace and flue gas to water heat exchange was designed to have no hotspots or fly ash buildup. So although we start provisionally saying we should have 4 plant shutdowns per year, we're starting to find this could be reduced to 2. Low downtime for service with planned preventive maintenance. All of our auger gearbox motors are automatically monitored, so the data logged for high load and notify if the commission thresholds are exceeded. This means if an auger is starting to wear down, we will know about it 6 months before it becomes a problem. Low emissions. We have a wet flue gas scrubber, which is developed by Woodtech Engineering to operate with waste feedstocks. This was developed using composted tailings, green waste overside, digested. We've also had continuous emissions monitoring system installed since day one. This was essential for Shropshire Council because they could see the emissions coming out of the waste feedstocks. Very important for feedstock trials and due diligence for projects. Easy to plan, permit and insure. Very difficult. With the original machine, it was just insured and put in as a biomass boiler. As the biochar industry grows, so does the knowledge of pyrolysis plants and so on. So BDC plant was specifically insured as a pyrolysis plant producing biochar. So this helped create a bit of a roadmap for other people. Having the full C1000 BDC plant at Woodtech Engineer has been a fantastic opportunity for Woodtech to develop our control system, especially for data logging feedstock and biochar, ensuring the carbon credit data is within a sort of black box system. This prevents misuse and increases transparency in the carbon industry. So now I'll hand you back to Dan, who will start to talk his side of the joint venture.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. So we started out with the idea that we would just buy our own pyrolysis unit. We'd go out and procure whatever's best for us. That's not without a huge amount of thought as to how we would run that and how we would, do we have any expertise in pyrolysis, and where would we get the staff, and how long could the maintenance contracts, all those sorts of things were something that we just thought, well, we'll tackle that as and when it happens. So I think when the opportunity for joint venture came up, it was really about the sort of de-risking side of things. So, can we, join with the manufacturer who's got a vested interest in keeping this going and making sure the production levels are high, and who knows how it operates inside out. That was what, and also, of course, have been trading carbon credits and also selling biochar for the last 4 years or so. So that was really one of the kind of key factors for us. It was quite a hard sell because their original, Betty, their original prototype was, it was kind of cobbled together and it didn't look anywhere near as pretty as the new one, and but it's the track record of actually, they've been producing this stuff and selling, EBC quality biochar. So and we'd seen the designs and of the new unit. So it was that de-risking side of things which really spurred us on to start the JV, and it's allowed as Woodtech to raise the sort of compliance standards, because if you're trying to deal with a local authority, we've got a lot of tick boxes and we've got a lot of bureaucracy. So actually it's kind of enabled us collectively to work on that and find a system to get through, navigate our way through the paperwork. We've it's provided live data, so we can go out and show people the system running. We've had so many different visits, which has been really useful. And it's only when people can go out and view the site and see how it's working and looking at how the biochar is being used on site, how they're using the energy in different ways, that people really get that circularity and how, locally you can gather the biomass from, a handful of farms, just managing their hedgerows differently or small woodlands in different ways can supply all the biomass we need. Yeah, it's designed for real world public sector operation, and we've got lots of different opportunities. We can look at it, the heat produced for heating swimming pools and public buildings. We can look at selling that heat to others. And if we do go down the waste option, the green waste option, we've moved away from that to start with because basically there's issues around using the waste and it impacting recycling targets. And of course, if you produce biochar from waste, it's still a waste until you can demonstrate otherwise, which is expensive. And the top right-hand point there about strengthening the local economy and supply chains. We really see this as saving us costs in terms of management of our the biomass on our own estate, but also developing, businesses who can process and produce biomass, increasing the use of agroforestry operations and those angles. During our investigations into pyrolysis, we had a huge amount of interest from other local authorities. We published our paper online, our business case online, and we had interest immediately from about 15 different local authorities, and now I think that we've spoken to about 32 different local authorities, plus a wide range of private sector organizations. They're very keen. The people we've worked with to get this far, we started with some consultants who didn't really understand what we wanted and wasted time, really. And we did find other consultants, Clear, and who've helped us progress this to the stage we're at. And also we've had a few other consultants help us out. So we've developed this framework of support rather than let all that dissipate and disappear. We've developed the Shropshire pyrolysis framework, all the knowledge we've gathered, and we are working with other local authorities to get them to certainly to procurement stage and a feasibility study. So at the moment we've had 3 local authorities sign up with us, and we're hoping for a few more over the next few weeks. This includes all the sort of the documentation that is required by local authorities to get to where we are. It includes an assessment of the feedstock availability of the sites, a full assessment of all the sites that are available in that local authority, and also doing a lot of the promotion around the various benefits of biochar and how the energy can be used in different ways within that authority area. So we've looked at this is just a kind of fairly vague but very indicative of the sort of savings that we can sort of demonstrate through using our framework. So going through from concept and approval through to set up, delivery and operation, we believe that we could save between 150 and 200,000 pounds net revenue, just because of the speed with which we can get through it, and we can avoid the barriers and hurdles that we experienced as we went through it. So yeah, some of the sort of revenue streams and benefits include the carbon credits. Initially, we're looking at selling those carbon credits so we can pay off the capital expenditure. But come 2030, we've got a carbon net zero target for the local authority for 2030, and we can use those carbon credits once that the capital expenditure has been paid off. And we will have 1.5, I suppose, operation units under Shropshire Council's ownership by then. Half with the joint venture, of course, and our own in Ludlow in March, and maybe more by 2030. We can use locally sourced feedstocks. There's plenty available when we want to develop the networks further. We get the energy from revenue from the energy, from the biochar sales, and we're also creating more resilient ecosystems, and improving the natural capital. So we've got real issues with pollution of rivers in our area, and we're really looking into the opportunities to and research into preventing nutrients and other pollutants reaching our rivers. So next slide there, Darren. And we also got our biochar plant, of course, which is the side of things, that side of things. So one of the things I've been looking at is the various different markets for the biochar. So I've been trying to promote that. We've started a trial of biochar in poultry sheds, only a very small one, but it's got farmers understanding how to use biochar, and that's been useful. And we're applying for funding to expand that. We've yeah, been looking at its use in farmyard manure to again reduce emissions and looking at water filtration. The second picture from the left there is Mick Jones there putting some biochar in the water filters, which is filtering yard runoff. So it can be quite a lot of pollutants in there potentially, but they've put interception pools and biochar filters, and we need some more research on how effective they are. The poultry sector, as I mentioned, it's not just about absorbing ammonia emissions and other pollutants. It seems to really improve the animal health. So this is why a lot of farmers are interested, whether we do research or not. It seems to be, and yeah, the farmyard manure. Currently, it's used in animal bedding in the cattle sheds there, but I mean, Darren's probably better off talking about that one. So, Darren, do you want to take over?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, when Dan showed on the earlier slide, comparing the virgin biomass to the whole tree biomass. So whole tree biomass is the complete tree. It's the bark, the brash, a bit of the root, the leaf. And with that, you get a high amount of fine fraction biomass, probably, 10 millimeter down. And when you're trying to produce agro grade EBC 24/7, any non-combustibles or sort of I don't know, I suppose you could say contaminants will be found the majority would be in the fine fraction biomass. So we dry all of our feedstock and then we actually screen sort of 6 to 8 millimeter down. That product is a fantastic animal bedding. What we then do then is take 75 to 80% of that and mix it back with the biochar, and that goes into our cattle bedding. This cattle bedding is changed every week. We put fresh biochar, fresh composted fines down, and that goes into making a biochar enriched farmyard manure. Now, we started doing that in 2021. That field you can see there, which is the drought of 2022. And I don't need to explain the obvious there, how well that field is doing. So before we started doing our trials on this field, we did a gold soil test, full sweep analysis, and then we've just done it again on the same field. And results have been phenomenal. Now, the only thing we've actually put on there is the biochar enriched farmyard manure. Leading up to the 12 years before this, we were already regenerative farming, but using the same system without biochar, having to buy in a lot of feed and so on. Now, a few of the things to point out here. So, for example, the carbon, we've gone up 0.455% a year. Good regenerative farming, you'd be happy with zero point 0.1. The one that really shocked me is boron. Boron is an inert material, and yet we've gone from deficient to optimal in 4 years of just letting the soil microbial biomass take over on itself. So what happens when the biochar bedding first goes down? The bedding absorbs the urine. That stops the urea from being taken by the anaerobic bacteria with the urease process and causing the anaerobic bacteria in the bedding to thrive and basically make a very horrible, foul-smelling slurry, which has become the sort of norm in farming. Instead, the aerobic bacteria takes over, and we have a much healthier herd, much more resilient to disease and health issues. And on top of that, we find that then on the land, our fungi microbial biomass outcompetes the bacterial microbial biomass, which allows us to thrive. There is more information on this. If you find Mick Jones on LinkedIn and follow the full report, it's fascinating. But this has been for us huge because biochar is not the silver bullet there. It's just a catalyst that lets this happen. So to summarize today's talk, how the public and the private sector has benefited, ourselves, Woodtech Engineering. This project, this JV with Shropshire Council, it's given us the opportunity to build out a full specification customer model plant at our research and development and manufacturing base. Working with the local authority has brought our compliance to the highest level of ongoing projects. And what I like about working with a council is their focus differs from private projects. So whereas a private project in the early stage of design, profit on A and B tends to be the most important, whereas a council, they look at the efficiency, the circular benefit, not just the money. So they look, okay, we might not get the value of biochar and carbon credit by using that feedstock, but that feedstock will build an industry there. And I love that because we're creating projects that actually benefit the local economy, not just the people that own the plants. And then Dan?
Yeah, and some from Shropshire Council's point of view, as I said before, we are de-risking our first venture into pyrolysis. We saw the potential of pyrolysis, but we didn't know anything about it really. Having partnered with WoodTech, we've got the sort of biochar sales and the carbon credit trading experience that they've got, and also helped for the procurement stage, which we definitely wouldn't have been able to do without the support of WoodTech in a very detailed way. So, and also, now we've realized that this is a scalable technology. We can offset our net emissions already with, well, just over one of these units, which our net emissions at the moment are about 2,500 tons. So, it's not far off. And if with 2 units or 3 or 4, we can make an even bigger dent in those emissions. The knowledge transfer as well has been really useful. A lot of the other local authorities are keen on the joint venture model. Having seen that, the opportunities of de-risking this, they are considering that, and that's one of the options that we present to them, that they can also join a joint venture with BDC. And there are private sector interests who are also interested in that angle. So here's some details, contact details. And here's some of the other partners as well. Clear, again, as I say, have been absolutely fantastic in just keeping our administration as low as it possibly can be, but keeping us up to date with very regular meetings and looking at the governance. And they are now experts in biochar and pyrolysis as well. We've also got Enviro Consult, who have been fantastic in terms of planning and permitting side of things. We've got Atwood Planning there, and we've Anthony Collins solicitors in terms of the legal aspects. So it's a great team, and we want to keep that together with our pyrolysis Shropshire pyrolysis framework. And anyone who's interested, do get in touch. We have a little video as well. We did a recent video from the WoodTech site, and you can use that QR code or the link there to access that video. Any
If we open up
questions?
to any questions now.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Dan and Darren. Very interesting to hear that this is actually happening in the UK. I mean, I'm still surprised, and it seems to work great. So yeah, hope to see more of that. To the audience, if you have any questions, write them into the chat right now. If you want. I had one question to you, Dan, probably. So you touched a bit on this waste issue that the moment you
Christian?
wait, yeah, we're still in the question session. So
Okay.
you start in 5 minutes. So as the moment you use waste, your biochar has waste as well. Do you have any recommendations if this will be easier in the future, or a recommendation, any outlook if that's possible? Because obviously that's one of the hot topics that would be helpful.
Yeah, we have asked for legal advice on the end of waste issue, and also we've spoken to ministers and had our MPs write to ministers in the government to ask them about the recycling definition. We haven't heard back on either of those. The legal advice seemed fairly positive, but we have to dig into that in a little more detail. But if we can find out something and push for that. But we are getting more and more interest from the government, and I do hope that we could develop a PAS standard 100, like compost has PAS 100 standard. So if we can have a similar standard for biochar of a certain quality that can be used from agriculture, if it comes from green waste, I think that would be a great step forward. But yeah, I think there's a lot of this is why we moved away from that. We wanted to keep moving. We wanted to develop this, and so we've moved. We've got the ability to process waste. We've gone for the right permits at our second site in Ludlow, but initially we will probably use whole tree feedstock just to get around those issues until that's resolved.
I mean,
Yeah,
the
makes
second
sense.
stage of the BDC project here, we're now building out a fuel storage system, handling and drying system, which is designed for a green waste material. So the issue with green waste, if you just chip it or shred it to the size you want, you end up with a mulch. So you have to deal with something that's a bit more random and difficult to handle. And that's why we're developing a plant here that can actually showcase how green waste will be used, because we all believe in green waste, and we've got millions of tons going to landfill. A lot of it you can get before it becomes a waste. but it's just getting the energy from it as well. Because when we worked on composted green waste oversize, you would be lucky to get 30% of the electric you normally could get, and your thermal efficiency is very low. I see someone's asked a question about pyrolysis and plastic waste. So in the green waste we do get plastic contamination. So this is why we have the development of the wet flue gas scrubbing system, and we operate continuous emissions monitoring. So any plastics that are pyrolyzed out, or in our situation, the first stage of our process is a controlled gasification, which basically burns out completely any of the plastics. The scrubbing system will then, at the wet flue gas scrubbing we developed for our plant would be fine on an RDF plant, recycled waste plastics. So it's just, if anyone's talking about waste and pyrolysis, the first thing I look at is not the machine. I look at the filtration system. I look how they monitor emissions, because you have to start from there.
Yeah, and then you got a question from Charlie Clark, and we're a bit over time, so we have to be quick. So how does the market look? So we know the UK market for biochar is still relatively small, and do you see that growing, or which area would you say can absorb the volumes?
I would say ask me again in 3 months, now that I'm actually making mountains of biochar, because that is the key. It's not that the industry isn't there. There's plenty of biochar coming into the UK that's not even here, but we don't have enough of it because we don't have enough producers. We're starting to all come online. We've had, Blackpool Biochar, they're producing biochar. The 7Y Valley projects come online. We're getting a lot of bigger people coming along. You got Brody's Biomass, one of our customer plants. The next Shropshire. Well, before you know it, we're collectively making tons and tons of biochar a day, which can then start to build the industry. The industry is there, and I'm seeing the interest, genuine interest, rapidly increase, and it is just a matter now. As the producers, it's down to us to produce it. So people want it, but we've been letting them down, basically.
And then can provide the how-to guide to get it to the customer then.
Yeah, I'd love to make a how-to guide. At the moment, it's very specific advice to individual local authorities, so there's no published report on that. But yeah, so we tend to have an introductory meeting with a local authority. They see if they want to commission us and our consultants to help them develop the business case, and then we work with them over about 3 months to develop that and get them to procurement stage. But yeah, obviously we have to charge for that because of the consultant's time mostly.
Oh, so great to hear, and I think you can find a lot of the stuff Darren and Dan talked about online actually, because there's quite some transparency in the project, so that's good. And you can watch this talk again, obviously, and write an email to follow up. And yeah, thank you both again for your time and for this great presentation.